Howdy, everyone. All right, so I thought it would be a good idea to take a little bit of a break from working on the actual airplane and work on something different, still aircraft related for sure, but something a little bit different. So about a month or so ago, I had ordered a MiniMax tug. MiniMax is the brand name. This particular tug, as you can see, comes as a kit. And this particular tug is called the Boss, and it is specifically for tail draggers. And I forget who I talked to at the company, but I did talk to MiniMax directly, and they assured me that this tug will work just fine with the Vans aircraft. And even though I have an aftermarket tail wheel set up, I forget whose tail wheel I'm actually using. Anyway, I was assured that this will work, so I went ahead and bought it, and these are the pieces parts that make up the entire tug. So I'll take the camera off the tripod here in a second and show you some of this stuff a little bit more up close. But this is it. It's a very simple tug. It's actually powered by a drill. The drill is included in the kit. You can opt to have the drill not included. But when I gave them, I have an extra drill motor. When I gave them the part number, they weren't sure going off of that part number if it would work with this setup or not. Now that I see how it actually goes together, the drill motor that I had would have worked just fine. But included in the price of the kit, you'll get a DeWalt drill, battery, and charger. There are multiple, I shouldn't say that, there are two options for power. This is a standard 20 volt power. You can, for an additional cost, you can get, I think is it 30 volt or 60 volt? It's to push around heavier aircraft, but the 20 volt power for this drill is enough to move my RV7, so I just went with that. So anywho, these are the pieces parts. Like I said, you get the drill motor, the battery pack, the charger, written instructions on assembly, a bag of hardware, tires, casters. This is the gearbox. I'll talk about this here in a second. And that's about it. It's very simple, not a lot of moving parts. It should go together relatively quick. I believe this is everything. I had this in the basement. I think I brought everything up here. So I believe this is the entire thing. So my plan is to take that off the tripod. I'll show you this stuff a little bit more up close. And I'm going to do a time lapse of the assembly, which will probably go pretty quick. I thought about doing the assembly real time and talking about it as I do it, but I don't work like that. When I work on something, I want to concentrate on what I'm doing. I don't want to necessarily be talking at the same time. So I'm just going to do a time lapse. And I'll probably do some kind of narration over top of that time lapse as well. So let me grab the camera and I'll show you this stuff a little bit more in detail. All right, so this is, like I said, this is the MiniMax tail dragger tug. This particular tug is called the Boss. And I bought this, I've had it about a month or so. Originally, when I purchased it, they said that it could potentially take up to, I forget how long it said, 4 weeks, something like that, 4 to 6 weeks or something for them to get it built, get the pieces made and get it shipped out. But I received this, I believe I received it in like 10 days. May have even been sooner than that. But anywho, let's talk about the individual pieces parts real quick. This is all brand new to me. I've never seen one of these tugs before in my life. So I'm not an expert. I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I'll just show you what I'm looking at and we'll go from there. So this is the gearbox, and this is the single most impressive piece of the whole kit, just because the finish is outstanding. It looks like it is incredibly well made, very nice finish. And this comes just like you see it. I have not done anything with this kit except take it out of the box. So as you see this, this is how it comes. It's got these different pieces, parts already attached to it. It looks to be very robust. I don't know who makes this. There's a tag here, W gear. I suppose I can look into that. But it looks like a great gearbox. And this is nothing more than a torque multiplier, basically, right? You're not going to move your airplane with just a drill motor. So you've got to have some kind of a way to slow down the rotation and increase the torque. And that's what this little guy here does. This bracket, this red bracket, this is very heavy gauge steel. I'm going to guess this is probably about an 1/8 inch thick. It is steel. It's very nicely powder coated. The gearbox itself appears to be powder coated. The website and the instructions say that this is a maintenance-free gearbox. It is permanently lubricated. You never have to change the oil. You don't have to do anything with it. I do notice now that I'm looking at it, there appears to be a plug here. So maybe you would inspect it once in a while. I'm not sure. They say that it's completely maintenance-free. You don't have to jack with it. So this is probably nothing more than a way for them to fill it at the factory. I suppose you could look at it once in a while. Don't know. And again, this is a piece of tubing, and down inside the tubing is the connection to the actual gear case itself. Another very heavy gauge piece of steel, very nicely powder coated, very nicely welded. The only thing that I would change, and this is just an observation now that I'm looking at stuff a little bit closer. If this was my design and this was my tool that I was selling to the public, I would have gone with stainless hardware. I believe these actual shafts are steel. I don't believe these are stainless. This hardware looks to be zinc-plated steel. This plate here, I'm not sure what this black plate is, but that appears to be, it is definitely steel, and it does not appear to be plated or anything. I don't even think it's not painted or anything. Just observations. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying. I'm just bringing stuff to your attention. So if it was me, I'd have stainless hardware. This plate here would be stainless hardware, whatever. But it is very, very nice. And this unit is pretty darn heavy by itself. Another heavy metal plate. This one is closer to 1/4 inch thick, nicely welded. And this is, again, it appears to be powder coated. This is more of a wrinkle finish, more of like a hammer finish, which I'm kind of a fan of. Very, very nice. Very heavy, very stout. Very nice unit. So moving on, here is another piece of steel. Again, just a reminder, I have not done anything with any of these parts. What you see is exactly how it comes out of the box. Again, very nicely powder coated with the hammered finish, which I'm a fan of. High gloss, nice and shiny if that's your thing. Steel, pre-welded, pre-bent, very nice, very heavy duty. Wheels are very nice. These are just powder coated steel rims. It does not look like there are any bearings of any kind in here. It looks like there is, I'm trying to figure out if this is solid. This is at least 1/4 inch thick, this wall thickness. I believe this might be solid steel. It is not, there is not any kind of a bearing or a bushing in here. From what I can tell, it looks like it's just a solid piece of very heavy wall tubing that's been welded to these steel wheels. Very nicely powder coated. Nice tires. These are standard tires. You can also buy snow tires, and you can also buy chains. And there's an option to buy wheel weights. They're actually like gym type plates that you would throw on with these somehow to add weight to the tires so they don't spin in a wet climate. But initially, out of the gate, I just wanted to start with some standard hardware, see how it does, and then if I have to get snow tires, I will. If I have to get chains, I will. If I have to add weight, I'll tackle all that down the road. But for now, these are just standard. This is what comes with the kit. Another piece of tubing. This makes up the handle for the tug itself. It's hollow all the way through. This is, I'm going to guess this is probably an 1.5" OD tube. Wall thickness, I don't know. I'm guessing it's more than a 1/16, of course. I don't know what gauge that would be, but it's a nice heavy wall tube. Again, very nicely powder coated. This powder coating reminds me a lot of the powder coating that Vans uses. Their engine mounts and gear legs, things like that. This is a quality like that type of quality. It's very, very nice. Clamp, I'm assuming this clamp is stainless, although this threaded rod here is not. Actually, this might not be stainless. Not sure. Clamp, again, I have not touched anything. This is how it all came out of the box. This is just a simple cross handle. When you have the drill motor installed, this makes up one handle, and this will be on the other side, making up the other handle. So you have basically a T handle to hold on to. It's a very nice drill, DeWalt 20 volts, lithium ion, 5 amp hour battery pack, just a single battery pack. They don't give you 2 packs. It's got a nice light on it, and the light intensity is adjustable with this switch. So there's the light, and you can make it brighter by flipping this switch, which is pretty cool. It goes off automatically like most drills. It's got a ball bearing on the front, which I'm a fan of. I use this a lot when I'm drilling things. I'll hold on to this while I'm drilling to steady the drill. A clutch, 3 speeds. Of course, your speeds here are gonna, that dictates how fast the actual tug moves. So if you want to run behind it, you'd set this on 3. If you want some more torque and a slower speed, you'd set it to 1. Very nice. I'm a fan of the drill. Couple of casters. These will make sense when I get into the build. Of course, they're rated for the load that they need to carry. Nothing fancy, just some standard off-the-shelf casters. Another heavy metal part. Again, all steel, very thick walled steel, nicely welded, very nicely powder coated with the hammered finish. This piece here, this is a more complex piece. Let me back up so you can actually see it. Pretty large. Again, more of the same, welded, powder-coated steel, very heavy. This moves, this rotates on a pivot back here. Right now it seems pretty tight, but I'm going to leave it like that because I'm not sure what it's for, and I don't know if it needs to be that tight, if it can be looser. It's not clear to me how much travel this will end up needing. Whoa, don't you do that. This slides in a slot. Again, I know that this whole mechanism has something to do with grabbing the tail wheel and getting it up off the ground. But you can see the slot here that this rides in. Very heavy duty. I don't know if it needs to be or if it's supposed to be this loose. Of course, I'll get into that when I do the build. Again, very nicely done. If it was me, like I said before, this would all be stainless. This mounting hardware back here would also be stainless. Just an observation. Very high quality, very stout, very heavy. I mean, this unit here by itself is probably, I don't know, 15 pounds, 20 pounds maybe. And then the last little bit is this drive shaft. This drive shaft makes the connection between the drill motor and the gearbox. And this is steel. Again, if it was me, I'd make it out of stainless. I thought about making my own, but decided against it. Piece of steel with a washer welded on it. It's got the ends squared off so you can drive it with the drill motor, and it fits into the gearbox drive. This comes plain steel. I had cleaned it really well and shot it with some self-etching primer. I'm not going to paint it. I'm just going to use primer. This, of course, resides inside the tube. I just didn't want plain uncoated steel because ultimately, of course, this will be out at my hangar, and I didn't want this to rust, so I went ahead and put some epoxy primer on it. And then you've got a bag of hardware. Bag of hardware is here, nothing fancy. And the instruction manual for the drill, and instruction manual and paperwork for the tug itself. So those are the pieces parts. I am going to set this camera back up on the tripod. I'm going to set it up to do a time lapse, and I'm going to get into the assembly of this thing and see how it looks. All right, talk to you guys here in a second. All right, so you can see in this time lapse, I'm starting to get to work on putting this tug assembly together. One thing I want to point out real quick is I had talked about in the beginning that the wheels do not have any kind of bearings in them. And the reason for that is in the foreground, you can see the gearbox with the drive shafts, and the wheels do not rotate on those shafts. They actually get pinned to the shafts with a 1/4-inch bolt. So that obviously when the drive shafts spin, they spin the tires. The wheels and tires do not freely rotate on that drive shaft, so there's no reason to have any kind of a bearing. Other than that, the assembly went together really smoothly, and no issues at all. I didn't have to do anything other than read the instructions and put it together. So I'll go into some of the details here in a minute after this time lapse wraps up, and you can see a little bit more up close how things look, how things fit, and a little bit real quick of the operation of the unit itself. So I'll talk to you guys here in a second. Stand by. All right, so there it is. That was the assembly of this MiniMax tug. Again, all brand new to me. Never seen one of these used. I've never seen one in person. I am impressed with the quality. It seems to be a very, very robust unit. Like I said before in the beginning, everything is very heavy gauge steel, very well powder coated, and it just seems to be like a really nice unit. Let's see, one thing is you may have noticed that these bolts they look like they're CAD plated. And you'll also note that they are flanged head bolts. I added these are grade 8s. I happen to have some of these laying around with the flanged head. I like those better. Since I had them, I just used them. The bolts that come with the unit are just standard hex head bolts. Nothing wrong with them at all. I just like the flared, or the wider base on the bottom of the head. So I used them on the casters, and I used them to mount the actual, I forget what they call this. I think they call this the forward frame or the main frame to attach to the drive unit. And I showed you that I had painted the drive shaft because that's just regular steel, so I painted that. And then on the through bolts, I swapped out the bolts that came with this were metric. They're very, very, very slightly smaller in diameter than this 1/4-20 bolt that I ended up using. So this is a 1/4-20 stainless steel bolt. And it fit right in. The holes are slightly oversized, so the bolt fit right in. And then I added a stainless nut. This is a nylon insert nut. And I added 3 washers, one under the head and a couple under the nut. The hardware that comes with the unit is just it's a slightly smaller diameter. It's metric, same length, but it's metric steel with a steel nylon nut and no washers. So it's just something I felt better doing. Going with stainless, 1/4-20, and adding in the additional washers. Other than that, it went together fine and no issues. I'm not really sure. I think this This may get sized according to the tail wheel. Once I get this out to the hanger, I can roll this into position and figure out exactly where this needs to be, and then I can tighten it. I think that will be good enough. I did notice that this corner of this plate, I don't know if it's been hit or if that's on purpose to have this corner bent. I'll see when I get out to the hanger with the airplane and with this, I can figure out how all this works and if this is an on purpose or if this is some kind of a defect, if you will. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't know how you would have bent that, because this is really heavy-duty steel, and there's no indication that this has been hit, so that might be an on purpose. That's it. So coming back up here to the drill motor, again, this is the drive unit. This is the power supply, if you will. I elected to go with it. You can see, obviously, that the handles are at an angle. It was more comfortable to hold on to it like this with both hands, rather than out here like a T. This just seems a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more comfortable with this handle and the drill motor angled. And again, your speed is varied by pulling the trigger and where you want to put the transmission. And then, of course, you've got forward and reverse on the drill here. This button here is your forward and reverse. One thing that I do not like, so this is a brushless motor. And what I don't like is how my other drill motors, as you pull the trigger, it's proportional. So as you pull the trigger back, it will increase in speed. This has more of a step. You pull the trigger back, and then it will go. And you pull the trigger back, then it will go faster. And I don't like that. You can hear it. You can hear how it steps. Not a fan. Maybe it's just something I need to get used to, but if it bothers me enough, I can always change out the drill. However, I'm sure I'll get used to it. So the other thing that I'm still trying to learn is you have this foot pad here, and that, of course, is going to raise and lower your lifting mechanism for your tail wheel. There's a welded bolt here, and I believe, this is what I believe. Let me get a better angle. Of course, you're going to want this down all the way to get up underneath the tail wheel, and then you're going to want to lift it up off the ground. I'm assuming you lift it up off the ground and then you set this lift bar on top of this bolt, and the head of the bolt prevents this from sliding off. So I believe you would pick this up, get up underneath the tail wheel, and then you would step on this to pick it up off the ground. And once you have it up off the ground, you'd swing this over the bolt and let it rest. Let it rest on top, and the head of the bolt keeps this from sliding off. So you really don't lift the tail wheel off the ground very much. You just want it off the ground. You don't need to have it, inches and inches off, I guess. But anyway, that's it. That's the tug. And again, I'll figure out all the little nuances with it once I get it out to the hangar, get the airplane out to the hangar, and start using it. And maybe I'll do a follow-up once I actually use it, and talk about it a little bit more when it's actually in use and how it operates. All right, so that's that. My next video will more than likely be back to building aircraft, and I will talk to you guys later.